Well, hello, you old so-and-sos. It is a late one tonight. I apologize for the late evening hour. You know what I should do? I should tweet out the fact that we're live so we have some more people coming in and saying, hello, governor. They need to talk just like that. Hang on, let me let people know. Boom, there goes that. And there goes that one. And we will now talk all about the video games. We will talk about all sorts of things today. Hang on. Boom, that's good. That's sent. That's sent. That's sent. We are off to the races, mon frere. All right, here we go. Where's my screen? That song, as some of you already know, is our own Alixplox with Off-Worlds. You will see the link coming up very soon for his own personal album. That is called Off-World. It's a great song. Part of a nice long playing or EP. No, it's an LP. It's got a bunch of remixes of that song. It's quite good. So listen, fellas, good to see everybody. Before we kick into some news, and there was, believe it or not, coming off the holiday weekend, there was some pretty interesting news to talk about in the world of video games today, which we will, of course. Obviously, you'll take your phone calls, pop yourself over into the call-in show channel. I'll bring you on at the appropriate time. I do want to let you know that this coming Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, we will have the creator and main developer, because it was 95% of it's done by one guy. He will be on the show, the developer of the game Severed Steel, which this was about the time last year that I discovered Ultra Kill, and it was my favorite game of the year. And Severed Steel is looking very much like it's going to be in the running for one of the best things I've played this year. We did a stream the other day. He gave us an extended build, and boy, I'll tell you what, that game does not fail to deliver. I've played through half the whole thing, and it's quite fucking amazing. So he will be on Thursday to talk about the indie development life, to talk about the specific game, to talk about dealing with PlayStation in terms of getting it on the PlayStation 4 and 5, I guess. It'll be backwards compatible and all sorts of things. So that's coming up Thursday. Don't forget, if you're interested in such nonsense, 11:30, we will talk to the Severed Steel creator. Okay, let us get into things, because obviously someone's asking, as I knew they would, and I am prepared because I am. I was a Cub Scout. Someone's asking, they're saying, well, Jaffe, what do you think about the Nintendo Switch announcement? Look, man, I think a couple of things. The first thing is I got to tell you, and I must be in the minority, because I know that Switch is selling great for the most part, but I don't understand this system in the sense that I have one. I play it rarely. Maybe if I didn't have a PC and I had, because I know that the Switch is really great for indies, but I don't play it all that often. And I only do when a big first party game comes out. Otherwise, I'm playing on the Xbox or Gamepass or PC or PlayStation 5. So the idea that there's a new one, it's more expensive. It's got a nice screen. I guess maybe it's a little bit more powerful, maybe. I didn't even see that today. I saw that there's new audio enhancements. I saw that there's a wired LAN port, which is great. It's got more storage, but I think from a processing standpoint, the games are going to pretty much be the same. It's just going to look, it's going to be a little bit bigger. In fact, it's the same size as the original Switch, which is what I own. And so most of the time when I play Switch, I play it on the big TV, so I kind of don't really care. I'm happy for you if you don't have one. Sure, pick it up. The screen will be nicer, but I'm not really all that interested in it. It does, yeah. If you already have a Switch, I agree. Encryption, it's kind of a waste of money. Bradley says the Switch is usually docked on my TV, so the OLED screen is not enough reason to upgrade. Right? Yeah. So I'm kind of like, what? I don't know who this is for. Right? I'm not sure what the value of it is. I will tell you that Metroid Dread, which is coming out the same day, I'm very excited by it. It's really weird because I watched like the first 15 minutes playthrough over on, it was the Treehouse thing they had over on at E3, And, you know, it's really funny. I think if it didn't have the name Metroid attached to it, nobody, for the most part, would be talking about this any more than no one's talking about the plethora of games on Steam that are Metroidvania games. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. This game looks great. It looks like a lot of fun. I like how you can use certain weapons and it changes the camera to kind of an over-shoulder view. I love the AI of these things, these enemies that chase you around the map. I mean, it's a very cool. I'm very much looking forward to it. However, I don't think that, you know, I look at this and I kind of go, who's this for in this day and age, except old school Nintendo fans? It's not like Metroid was ever a big franchise. It was for Nintendo, but it wasn't like it was a Mario or a Zelda or a Mario Kart or a Smash Bros. So I'm very excited for this. This thing looks really, really good. But it looks kind of like one of the 50 other games that you would see on Steam. But I'm excited about it. I'm curious. Are you looking at this game and going, oh my God, I can't fucking wait? And how much of that is nostalgia versus actually something you've seen in the content itself? I look at the content and I say it's cool, but you know. Realism says Metroid is the best game series I've never played. I mean, it's a good series. It's a very good series, but it's kind of reminiscent, like I said, if you want to play Ori, if you want to play Hollow Knight, if you want to play Blasphemous, if you want to play, goodness gracious, Castlevania. I mean, there's just ad nauseum of this genre, which is, you know, tied into the creation of Metroid. They started it. Shadow Complex, exactly. xCloud, Luna, Stadia, one of them need to cut a deal with Switch. I played Control streaming mode on Switch. It's pretty damn sweet, says Fuzzy. I didn't know you could stream on Switch. Does Fuzzy, does the Switch have a streaming service, or you mean you kind of hacked it basically? Yes, I agree, James. Super Metroid still holds up today. There's absolutely no doubt. It is a great game. It is a great series. I'm just talking commercially. If you're looking at your screen right now, this is sort of the new Metroid. And the vast majority of it is a 2.5D game, which is great. I love stuff like that. But I just have a hard time wondering what that actually means to a large percentage of the audience. Here's something that's weird to me. Somebody in the chat who goes by the name of... where'd he go? Somebody in the chat who goes by the name of... did he delete it? Where'd it go? Oh, Skeletank McGraw of the Skeletank McGraws. He says, Metroid is a Metroid game, not a Metroidvania. People still don't understand. What would you like me to understand, sir? Let me tell you how I define Metroidvania. Metroidvania basically is a game where doesn't have to be, of course. Jedi Fallen Order did it, but most games are in 2D, 2.5D. And they are open world to an extent, but they block off areas of the map until you level up and or unlock specific things, kind of like what is that game that they had on PS Network and a sequel's coming, Axiom Verge or something. And there's also a lot of map reading and backtracking and things like that. So if there's to me, those have always been Metroidvanias, because Metroid on the Super Nintendo plays that way and Castlevania plays that way since, I don't know if the first one played that way, but a lot of them play that way. So I'm not entirely sure. Okay, interesting. So Fuzzy says on the Nintendo Switch, 2 games do stream. Control and Hitman. It feels like a test thing. It makes sense to me that a streaming service would want to get on there. Who does it stream through, though? Does it stream through Nintendo, or is it like they're running a Luna or something? Games like Symphony of the Night, says Skeletank. That game is literally the game that coined the Metroidvania term. Shadow of the Night added in RPG elements too. Okay, I'll have to go back. I mean, the last Castlevania I played before the kind of the one done by the guy that wasn't Castlevania was one on the 3DS, which I loved. It might have been Area of Sorrows or something. I don't remember the name of it. I don't remember that having, when you say RPG elements, I mean, you could level up. I'm not sure what you mean by that. But anyway, let me know. Different Era says, Jaffe, the Switch screen appeals to portability and better performance in some cases. I didn't see mention of increased battery life, though. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know why it's, I mean, I haven't heard, yeah, Bloodstained is what it was called. I don't know why it's gotten the hype it's gotten, but there you go. People are excited. They love their Nintendo. I used to be a huge Nintendo fan, but recently, maybe the last 4 or 5 years, I've gone a little more cold on them. I still think they're wonderful and they make some of the best games in the industry. But since, like, right before Switch, like, I look, man, I played the fuck out of my Wii U. I enjoyed my Wii U. But I mean, I understand it was a limited console compared to what was out there competitively speaking, but I enjoyed it. I just think after around the Switch, I don't want to be dramatic and, attribute it to Iwata going away and dying or Miyamoto mostly retiring. I don't know what it is, but things don't feel as fun anymore, right? They feel good. They're great, but nothing kind of lacks a heart to me these days. Okay. Oh, hey, I agree, John. John says a God of War Metroidvania would be perfect. I've been asking, or would be dope. I've been asking to make one of those for ages. Okay. Kevin says, honestly, I'm not really hyped for Metroid Dread. Seems like a 2.5 remake of Fusion. Lacks originality, waiting for Metroid Prime 4 news. Yeah, man. I mean, I'm going to get it because I love games like it, but I'm not, crazy excited for it other than going, hey, it looks like a lot of fun. I want to play it, but I get what you're saying. I don't understand why people would buy the Switch Lite when it can't be played on the TV. Who the fuck knows, man? Who the fuck knows, man? I don't know. I mean, you're right. I don't know. Nintendo seems to understand exactly what the market wants. And they're a hell of a lot smarter at reading the tea leaves of the marketplace than I am, because I would have said the same thing with you. If somebody would have come in and pitched me the Lite, unless I don't know how much less expensive it is, but it's not like $50. I mean, it's still like a $200 system, isn't it? Or maybe I'm wrong. Jason says, yeah, there's something more sanitized and bland about Nintendo these days. Yeah, it just seems off a little bit. Switch Lite is for little kids who buy it. Yeah, I mean, I guess I can see that, it's purely portable, but how much less money does it cost is the question. While you're answering that, let's move on. I want to talk about hype in video games, and is hype in video games pretty much dead? And I mean this in the sense that today was just sort of another announcement that you could tell the audience was geared up for. I was geared up for it. I was hyped up for this state of play. I had been hearing, and I know that, now people are saying, no, it's coming in August, right? Whatever. The big announcement from Sony is coming in August. But I had been hearing that this summer we were going to hear more about the PlayStation Network. We were going to hear more about PS Now. We were obviously going to get a more God of War information, a Horizon release date, maybe see some new games. And, coming Thursday, it's basically just like, here's some, what is the Arcane Deathloop game is getting the lion's share of the time. It's a 30-minute thing, and then a bunch of indie games. Now, I love indie games. I adore indie games, but I will tell you that there is definitely a sense of letdown, of come down, of deflating of the air of the tire, right? And I saw this also at E3 with a lot of people going, oh, it's not what it used to be, blah, blah, blah. So I started thinking about this, right? Now, I love playing games now more than I have almost ever, okay? So it's not my lack of interest in video games at all. But it does seem to be this idea that the expectations that used to be met for the audience, or at least the hardcore audience, are no longer being met when it comes to the hype and the excitement, right? So if you look at the sales of PlayStation and Xbox and Switch and PC, more people are gaming than ever. The consoles are selling great. The games are selling pretty great. It's not like this is mattering. The only people it really seems to matter to are the hardcore enthusiasts, which is fine. And someone's going to come along and monetize that desire for some kind of event-based thing. And I don't think it's just necessarily a PAX ripoff or something, but there's something where you can look at that and go, this hardcore crowd needs that event. They need that Steam Valve release. They need that focus, but it's not going to be E3 anymore. It's probably not going to be PAX. I don't know what it's going to be, okay? But I got to thinking, I'll get to that super chat and just say, I'll get to it now because it's relevant. A different era. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. It says Cyberpunk disaster struck fear into companies. I honestly don't think it's that. I appreciate it and thank you for the super chat, but I honestly don't think it's that. Here's what I think. Right. And then they could have shown the Bridge of Spirits. They could have showed a little bit more of that. They're just not showing anything, right? So, but here's what I'm starting to wonder, right? And this is just, to me, this is interesting in that it speaks to stuff that I know we've talked about a little bit before, and how maybe it speaks to something that Sony is going to have to figure out, because other companies, I think, are in the process of already figuring it out. So let me start with this. If you go back and look, this is the Wikipedia page if you're listening to all the PlayStation first-party games. And obviously it won't surprise you to tell you that as you go back to 95, there's old Twisted Metal right there. As you go back to 95, look at the massive number of games that were published by first-party in mostly the United States, but also it covers PAL and United States and a couple of Japanese areas. And obviously, as we get more and more and more, I mean, now we're in the heyday of 98. Just look at that. I mean, it's how many games a month? 3 games a month? 2 games a month? Right? But it won't surprise you to learn that as we move down the timeline, especially as we get out of the PS2 era, this list begins to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, right? So we are now looking at the PlayStation, where is it? Let me show you the PlayStation 4 and 5. And this is not going to be news to you, but it's when you see it in stark detail is when you go, whoa, that's impressively concerning. So this is 2019. We had Concrete Genie, Days Gone, Death Stranding, Medieval, and The Show. Then in 2000, and this is PS4, 2000, then there's PSVR, but whatever. 2020 in America, Dreams, Ghost Tsushima, Spider-Man, MLB The Show. You had Predator, Hunting Grounds, Sackboy, and The Last of Us, right? So you had, it's not like you didn't have games, but your average number of games were like 6. And then PlayStation 5 is obviously, but understandably, even worse in terms, or less, not worse, right? Okay, so think about this for a minute, right? I was like, are any other industries dealing with this? Do the movies deal with this? No, not really. There's always something big to get excited about. There's always something to drop at Comic-Con. There's always something to drop at Disney D23. There's always a big new trailer a month that everyone's hyped about and excited about, right? And I started thinking, well, how many movies does the average studio release in a year? Okay, now I kind of guess, but you can guess if you want, but I'm going to tell you. So here's a spoiler. The average motion picture studio, well, Disney in 2019 released 19 movies. In 2019 was 19 and 2020 was 23 movies. Okay, Warner Brothers did 2018 was 21, 2019 was 21. 2021 is 18. Obviously, 2020 is rare because we're talking about COVID, right? If you go to Sony, though, like I said, Sony releases a lot fewer. Now, here's the interesting part about this that's potentially problematic for Sony. Maybe not. But Skeletank, again, comes through absolutely correct. He says it is the cost and time requirement for AAA games that's thinning out the amount of first-party titles. And I would argue third-party titles that are big as well. But now look at this. And again, this is not me shilling Xbox, because I have them both, and I think there's no doubt that the very best first-party studios in the world, even trumping Nintendo these days, I would say. I've always gone back and forth on that, but I'd say these days, at least with a certain genre of game, is clearly Sony, PlayStation first-party. There's absolutely no doubt. But look at this, though. These guys are. This is if you give every game 3 years of development time. Right? And again, Sony usually takes longer. The Last of Us 2, I want to say was, I can't believe I'm saying this, maybe I'm wrong, was 6 years, right? Is that right? 6 years. But if you give, there's 23 studios here. If you give every studio, and some of them make more than one game, but if you give every single studio 3 years to make their game, then you're still able to release a big brand new first party game every other month. And that's assuming each one of these studios only makes one. Now, a lot of people will tell you, that, you know, that Sony financially can't compete because they don't have the money. And that may very well be true. They can't afford to have all these developers. It's quality over quantity. But there is a point, and maybe all it's affecting is the hype. I don't fucking know. All I can tell you is when I was looking at this announcement going, and then I think I was hearing somebody going, I did hear somebody today talking about it going, it's not just this announcement, it's that we don't know anything else that's coming from Sony, right? It would be one thing to know God of War's 2022, Horizon, we hope, is 2021. And then there's these 3 new games that we just got teasers about. So it's like, and yeah, COVID, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not dismissing it like there's absolutely no value to why it's slowing things down. But there's just like, it really does seem that the amount, everything that Sony is doing, which I just said, so don't come at me like I'm some kind of hater. I just said to you guys that they are the best first-party development team publisher in the world, on the planet, in the universe, the known universe. I'm not mocking these guys. I'm not taking the piss. But so much about what it is that makes them great, besides just the creative juice and the brilliant management, are the things that make it hard for them to compete at scale, right? Which is, the budgets are going up on these kinds of games, but not necessarily on other kinds of games that Sony doesn't really make all that much of. And the time it takes to make these games, which obviously is linked to budget anyway, is also going up. So I don't know. I don't know how they're going to solve this if they feel there's a need to solve. And I know Sean Layden, before he left, or right after he left, did say, sort of quote famously, I guess, that we need to be getting back to 12-hour games because this is not sustainable. And this is the head of fucking Sony PlayStation worldwide saying this. So think about that for a moment. Think about it's not me. It's not some guy on the internet who used to work at Sony. It's not even Shuhei Yoshida kind of pontificating about the future. This is the motherfucking guy who ran Sony, who was at Sony for 25 years, and he leaves, and on the way out the door he says, this is not sustainable. Right? I mean, something's got to give is all I'm fucking saying. That's all I'm fucking saying. I don't understand this comment in the chat. Where did it go? It was from Ashu, and maybe you're not talking to me. Quality versus quantity, are you out of your mind? I don't know if you're addressing me. Are you suggesting that quality is more important than quantity? And if you are, my suggestion to you would be, you're not wrong, but I think at one point, you have to determine when good enough for most people mixed with variety and frequency trumps a noticeably better product, right? It goes back to VHS and Betamax. No doubt Betamax was a better format, but VHS had a number of things that trumped it and made it, a worldwide phenomenon. Mr. Orange says, can you explain why lesser studios means better quality? Sure. I mean, it means better quality only in that it's lesser studios and the current Sony management, right? They give the games more time. They're obsessed with nuance and detail. And the fewer times they have to swing the bat or the fewer times that they'll miss, right? And so in all of the people that they have roped into their group, pretty much the only people who are left standing as Sony developers are the ones that make hits that people love, right? But if you look at like these games, like Undead Labs, I have friends who work at Undead Labs. I know State of Decay has a group of hardcore fans, but Undead Labs is not at the same level of Insomniac right now. And I think they would tell you that, right? I don't know what the fuck Compulsion Games makes. One of these groups made that We Happy Few, which was just kind of like, cool idea, cool art, didn't really land with too many people. I mean, these are not the same caliber of studios. But they're probably, like I said, they're probably not going to take as long. And they're going to be more than good enough. And some of them might be brilliant. A couple of them will probably be brilliant. But I'm just saying again, I have both systems and I have a Switch. I'm not sitting here going Xbox is great. Right now I game more on PC. Before that I was gaming more on PlayStation. And then but I'm gaming on Xbox Gamepass on PC because I'm playing Desperados, which needs a mouse. Doesn't need it, but it's great. So Zaf Vyrick says plenty of movie studios put out crap just to have something forgettable films. I don't want that with games. Again, I appreciate that, man. I'm not suggesting that you're a rare breed. A lot of people feel that way. I'm just saying that ultimately, though, the fact that people are disappointed almost consistently with all the studios. Even EA came out today and said we're not going to have any of the what are they called, BioWare games at EA Play this summer, right? They're consistently, part of it's COVID, but part of it is these games that gamers are demanding are bigger, they take longer, they're more expensive, they're more fidelity, and I think there is something to be said for going, that's important, it's really important, we don't want to not do that, but there is value to frequent enough drops. And if you go back to this Wikipedia list of just take 2019, man, these were your first party games. Concrete Genie, Days Gone, Death Stranding, and Medieval. Now, Medieval's a remake, and very few people played it. MLB is, if you're in MLB, great. But you're really looking at 3 fucking games. One of them was a tiny game. Right? I mean, that's all I'm fucking saying. I'm just saying that something's got to give, and what we're seeing right now is frequency. So if you're okay with 2 to 4 to 5 games, absolutely, Drive By Joe says, and they are more memorable. No one's doubting that. No one is suggesting that you're wrong about the fact that Sony makes, better first-party games right now. Maybe that'll change, or at least with some of these studios, but absolutely, right now, there's no goddamn doubt. But ultimately, like I feel more like Vile Divinity in the chat. He says, I would rather have a ton of B-tier games than only like 2 top-tier games to play in a year. Right, I'm with you on that, but obviously I have both, so I'll play both, but I get it. Mike22 says PS Now should add exclusives 6 to 9 months after release and 1 new day 1 game plus recent old games. Well, PS Now should do something. I will tell you, we're going to move on, but I will tell you that... and Jonathan Martinez, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it, buddy. Very generous. Thank you, sir. I will tell you that, God damn it, what were you? I'm losing my goddamn mind. I don't know. Someone's like, that was my comment, you fucker, respond. But, anyway, Eddie Torres says all these studios that Microsoft has and not one can muster up a game for launch day. I agree. I have said numerous times that I don't know what the fuck is going on over there. I think the way to think about this, though, Eddie Torres, is to say, well, yeah, if this does, like they say it's going to do, that's the scenario we're talking about. But yeah, you're right. Right now, they haven't proven they can put anything out for shit other than maybe the coalition certainly has. And I mean, all these studios have put out games, of course, Playground games and whatnot. But in terms of at a consistent rate, there are very few game companies up here that are putting out stuff, consistently recently. So, but yeah, but I have to assume that's going to take care of itself. Maybe it won't. Someone says I'm playing State of Decay. I'm not going to read your name because I can't pronounce it. State of Decay 2 at the moment. It's awesome. I've played it. There's nothing about it I don't like. I'm just saying it didn't catch the world's imagination like, say, The Last of Us or something. Okay. Let me move on. Oh, show Xbox 2019's list of first-party games. Steve Thompson, I can show it, but I can almost guarantee you it will be anemic, if anything. Let's go see, though. Okay, so Xbox first-party games. Let's see. Probably none would be my guess, but let's go to Wikipedia. And, okay, here we go. Let me bring up the screen so you guys can see what I'm saying. All right, so come on now. Where are y'all at? Come on now. What is this? Am I looking at the right thing? Let me go back to the top. Xbox Game Studios. Is that what we're talking about? But my guess would be none, or maybe one. Maybe Gears 5, right? There's no doubt. So let's just assume that's your point, and I think your point is very valid, and well. You didn't state. You're absolutely right. But again, that's what I'm saying. If this holds, then the theory makes sense. But yeah, you're right. If it's more of the same, then they have their own problems to deal with. Okay. Horizon, they're saying, is not out this year. It might be, it's supposed to be, but nobody really knows yet, or if they do, they haven't said. Skeletank says, I personally don't have much interest in modern first-party games from Sony. They all have the feeling of being the same game. I can't really explain why. God of War was decent, but not as good as the OG games. I mean, I've really enjoyed a lot of their new games. I very much enjoyed God of War and Days Gone and Last of Us 2. So, you know, your mileage obviously will vary. So, all right, let us move on. I want to talk about this just very briefly because I was thinking about this. This is Guardians of the Galaxy, which I know you guys know. It debuted the other couple weeks ago, I guess at E3. People online seem pretty excited for this. I don't know why, and I'm not a hater. I love the movies. I've read the comics before the movies came out. I know these characters. I like these characters. But it looked just kind of like a generic title, and I'm not a big graphics guy, but it didn't even look very good. It just kind of looked visually just kind of like, you know, whatever. But what's interesting about this, and I think it's the same problem that I had with Avengers, and I want to mention this to you, and I want to see if I'm the only one that feels this way, and maybe this is why. So here, whenever you read these articles, certainly the one about Avengers and this one about Guardians, you'll see something like this that says the core idea came from Marvel in the sense that the comic company gave them one clear edict from which the creative decision sprang. And then this is the director, the creative director, I think, says, Marvel basically told us, and he's quoting, or I'm quoting him, we want you to create a game that is the Eidos Montreal version of Guardians of the Galaxy. We don't want you to make the movie version. We don't want you to make the comic books. We want you to make your own, as long as you stay true to the essence of who the characters are. The thing about that, though, is these characters have never resonated beyond, and nor did the Avengers, by the way. The Avengers was obviously a much bigger success in comics than the Guardians ever were. But it wasn't like the Avengers, for the most part, was a top-tier book, right? It was, you know, Spider-Man was a top-tier book, and the Hulk sometimes was a top-tier book. But the Guardians, certainly, and to an extent, the Avengers were not. So if you look at Spider-Man, though, from Insomniac, they nailed it, because when you play Spider-Man from Insomniac, it doesn't feel like they're trying to riff on Sam Raimi's work. It doesn't feel like they're trying to riff on the Tom Holland movies or even the Garfield movies. It feels like, it genuinely feels like it's its own thing, okay? And in that, it's not only its own thing, but it's really good, right? But when you look at Avengers, and especially now if you look at Guardians, I want to show you this clip. I mean, first off, well, it's clear they're so heavily influenced by the movies, by the MCU. Not the Insomniac one, but these. And that's where I think they trip up, right? Because it's so clear, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but even though he's saying Marvel did not want us to make the Guardians of the Galaxy, the movie, we want you to make the Eidos version. I don't know. This feels like they want to make the movie. The Avengers feel like they want to make the movie. When you hear, I don't remember if it's Troy Baker or if it's Nolan North doing, no, Troy was playing Bruce Banner. So I think this was Nolan doing Iron Man. But even in the Iron Man comic these days, it's everyone's trying to do Robert Downey Jr., right? Everyone's going for that humor, but you don't have the facial likenesses. You don't have the voices that people have learned to sort of associate with those characters. So it just feels really low rent and cheesy and forced. Like it's like you're trying to play in this pool that was established by Joss Whedon and the goddammit Jimmy Gunn and who are the brothers, the Russo brothers, but they don't have those abilities yet as creators, right? I want to show you this. This is just briefly, I'm not going to show you the whole trailer. I'll show you like 10 seconds of it. This is, don't tell me they weren't influenced by the fucking Guardians of the Galaxy movie. The idea of the music and the rock and the humor and how Drax plays off of Rocket and how, just watch this for like 8 seconds.
Lady Hellbender seeks the monster within. The small ugly one is clearly the correct choice. He's cruel, sadistic, and his soul is filthy and filled with rage.
I vote we sell Groot. I honestly think Lady Hellbender will go for it.
Yeah, well, I vote for not.
I also vote for the creepy little beast.
2 votes each. Peter?
Well, Rocket's definitely scarier on the inside. He's unstable and vicious and totally oblivious to the needs of others.
Okay, we get it.
All right, let's
Right.
do this.
I mean,
Let's go sell a monster.
right?
We're not seriously flying in.
The music, the humor, all of that feels like we're desperate to be the movie, but we don't have any of the likenesses. In fact, what we look like is this. I'm sorry, I don't know what the fuck they're doing anymore. I know I'm not the first guy to complain about the way this guy looks. I understand that they could not get the rights, or they didn't want to pay for the rights to Chris Pratt and Batista and whoever else these actors are. Same thing with the Avengers. I get it. I absolutely get it. But it comes off as force, and it comes off as sort of like, oh, we're doing that thing. You know, that thing that you liked in the movies where the Guardians listen to rock music and they kind of crack wise between missions, but they're still a family? Yeah, you can argue that's part of the comic, but this doesn't exist without James Gunn's vision. So either own it and make it that vision with the actors and whatnot, or find a group of people that can do it like Insomniac. Not in terms of technically. I like that Eidos Montreal team. They're great. They've made some great fucking games. But this just feels, and the Avengers just felt like they're trying to be the MCU, and it doesn't work. In my opinion, just my opinion. We'll see what happens. Different era, thank you, buddy, for the super chat. He says, will tech ever allow AAAs to be released within shorter windows? 10 years is long to wait for a game. 10 years. And how much can console games advance without becoming VR? I mean, that's well, thank you for the super chat. That is a great question, because ultimately the problem with AAA is it is a forever moving goalpost, right? So I was debating this or discussing this with somebody on my Twitter recently, where they were convinced, I think this guy had gone to like video game design school, college or whatever, and he was like, well, as the tools get better, it's going to be easier to make games. And it's like, that's true. All you have to do, I was looking at an indie game today that literally looked like a PS1 game that would have taken a team of like 10 people and $1.5 million to make. And today this guy was just sort of making it one-man band, right? That's absolutely true. The problem is the expectations of gamers who play in the AAA space, not the indie space, not the casual space, the AAA space, they demand that goalpost continually be moved. So yeah, if you want to kind of be an indie developer or a AA developer, absolutely. You will have shorter windows. You have shorter windows now. But the people who want their AAAs, which are they're going to get less and less and less of them. All you have to do is walk the show floor at E3 and realize over the years it's gotten smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, not because no one's had any money, but because there's not enough games to showcase. PAX is where you see all the games these days. So, but and your other thing about how much can console games advance without becoming VR? VR doesn't advance gameplay for the most part. AR will advance gameplay, but honestly, you're not going to see real advances in gameplay until you actually put a premium on that discipline. So many people, understandably, put a premium, at least in AAA, on what they can advertise. It's very hard to advertise game systems. That's why, like, your favorite board game of all time, for example, let's say it's Settlers of Catan. A lot of people say that's the best board game ever made. Well, great. But I can't pitch you that on a TV commercial other than showing people playing it and having fun, right? It's mechanics are this... are the heartbeat of interactivity, and it is very difficult to communicate those, especially when you've got all these great graphics and actors and sound and mocap that you can sell it like a movie. And no one's really come along to figure out how to sell it like a game yet. And in that, the expectations keep going up and up and up. So I don't really know what the solve is at the AAA level, but it's a great question, and I guarantee you a lot of these folks are wondering, who work in the industry. Bacon Magma says the reason that this game, Guardians, is going to fail and Avengers failed is because they're relying on the movies to sell it. Those franchises are mainly known for movies. They're not like Spider-Man, Batman that can stand alone. I rarely agree with you, Bacon, but I agree with you 100% there. And in this case, what I would say is that the work you have to do when you're picking up a property like this is and again, they do have a comic book writer. They absolutely have a comic book writer that's working with them on this. It's not that it's not going to be Marvel accurate. I forget who it is. It's not that the dialogue's not going to be good or anything. It's going to be that if Guardians of the Galaxy in its best form as a comic was never anything other than a cult comic, which is pretty much what it was, then if this team doesn't find a way to, bring something to it that's not just trying to rip off the movies, but they can't really rip off the movies because they can't get the voices, the actors and all that, and the music, then ultimately, what are they left with? So no, I agree. I absolutely agree. Let's move on, shall we? I want to talk to you, kind people, about this. I got this from Rathy on our Discord. And I see in the chat, Cannibal, I'll bring you in just a little bit, buddy. So let me take a sip of the old bubbly. One moment. You guys, look what I acquired. So I went, this is not an advertisement, I promise. I went to MedMen here in San Diego. It is a pot dispensary because it's legal here in California. I should really see if they'll buy ads, if they'll be a God of War member. It's a pot dispensary here. It's actually in a couple of places in the West. I think there's one in Arizona, but it's like going into the Apple store, but for weed. It is like these nice long tables. There's like computer monitors at each station. There's like the weed in these little cups that you can look at, you can smell, and you can use the touch screens to kind of say, this is the mood I'm going for. This is the vibe I'm going for, blah, 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 right? I just wanted to show you this, though. I picked this up, haven't tried it yet. My goal is to play Evil Within Part 2, which I started recently and I really like. This is, this one's called Cheers Queers, but the one I bought that one for, to show a friend of mine. Well, I bought this one to show my brother because he is of that persuasion. But that said, they have like 4 flavors. This is Cheers Queers. I bought one called like Party, not Shardy, something like that. But it's Pop Rocks marijuana. It's Pop Rocks marijuana. Listen to it. Come on now. So that'll be a future stream. Let's move on though, shall we? Okay, I want to tell you about this. This is, so Rathy sent me this, but it's a bigger story. You just want a bag of weed? No, Sumo, you got to once you get into that store and it's all crazy and shit, man. There's so many options. I love it. It's offensive. Sorry, Scotty. Listen to me. Against weed, called it pot. I don't fucking know. I'm not a big stoner. I mean, I enjoy it from time to time, but there is a strain of weed called Ghost of Sparta. There's one called Sweet Tooth. You goddamn right. Listen to me though. Okay, so this is the rare time that Reset Era and NeoGAF agree. I don't smoke just because I don't like the smell. Okay. So anyway, this is talking about the sales of the Bandai Namco game Scarlet Nexus. I played the demo. I liked the demo, but I didn't really spend too much time with it. There's a lot of mechanics and menus, and I just didn't have the time to really get into it and learn it. So, Scarlet Nexus sells 80% on the PS across 4 and 5, and it sells only 20% on Xbox, right? And it's kind of a question of, here we go again. Now, not every game, hello Retro Queen, always good to see you, buddy. Not every game does this. Outriders didn't do this, but a lot of games are starting to show this pattern where they will sell a lot on the PlayStation and a little on Xbox. Okay, fine. And then we go over to Reset Era, they get a little bit more specific, where it's like, well, why is that happening? And lo and behold, this guy's basically saying, it's gotten to the point, if a game, in this case Scarlet Nexus, is not on Gamepass, I won't buy it. Is this an unintended consequence? And then he talks about, or everybody talks about, no, it's intended, no, it's not intended, but most people think it's intended, right? So, and look, I have been the same. I have found myself, I will really only buy, like anything that looks indie that I'm interested in, I'm going to wait a little bit to at least go, is this coming out on the Game Pass? And if I haven't heard, or if it's not, I'll go ahead and buy it. But obviously, this has moved me to only buy PlayStation first-party games. Like the last one I bought was Ratchet. And I will be buying Metroid when it comes out, but they don't put out that many games over there that I really want anymore, right? So what interests me about this, though, is this comment coming up that I'm going to show you, because this is really telling And in some ways, this goes into the question. One moment, 1 second, fellas. So yeah, this is really interesting to me. Because it kind of goes back to the comment that we got, the super chat a minute ago that we got about AAA games from a different era in terms of sort of what is going to be different about AAA and how is it going to move the medium and all of these things, right? Well, here's what's fascinating. This comment inevitably comes up, which is things like Game Pass and PS Plus and the free games and all that. When people talk, this guy says, Precious Tritium says, when people talk about subservices devaluing games, this is pretty much it, right? Now think about this for a moment. That's what I find fascinating. The subscription service, in my opinion, at least in these cases, has not devalued games. The subscription service in these cases, where if you have Game Pass and you choose to wait, it, I think, more shines a light on the quality of games, right? Because because what they're really saying is, yeah, I'd like to play Scarlet Nexus, but there's so many other things that are good enough or just as good or better that I can play without dropping $60 that I'll do that, right? So it's not that the games are devalued so much as the value of it. I guess what I'm saying is people say the games will be devalued, but they say it like it's going to hurt the games. Like it's like, this game's really worth a lot, but this will make you think it's worthless. But actually it's the opposite, which is a lot of these games maybe weren't really worth what you were paying. And the minute you were given an option, the only ones that you want to pay for are the ones that really do stand head and shoulders above the crowd. Everything else, it's like, I'll get it. I mean, think about it. You'll get it whether you get it on Game Pass, whether you get it on PlayStation Plus collection, whether you get it every month. I guess, yeah.
Do we have gum?
1 second, fellas and filettis. Okay, so the deal is that if you look at PlayStation Plus, if you look at Game Pass subscription, if you look at even, I went to Amazon Prime Twitch Gaming the other day, and they're giving away 3 or 4 relatively decent sized games every month, right? Epic Game Store, right? So it's not that the games are being devalued, it's that the value of the games are actually being presented for the first time in a landscape that allows people to make choices. And in making those choices, I think they're revealing that a lot of these games are not worth $60, right? That's kind of all I'm fucking saying. If GTA came out on Game Pass, will you buy it? No. Why would I buy it if it's on Game Pass? Right, that's right. So Wiki, this is a good point. Wiki says, eventually there'll be so many games on Game Pass, you'll be spoiled for choice and other games won't get played. That's probably true, except the games that are head and shoulders, right? So if I only play Game Pass, but then God of War comes out, I'll play God of War. Absolutely. If I'm only playing on PlayStation Now, if they get their shit together, but a new Zelda, 2D Zelda comes out, I'll play that. But you're absolutely right. It's just like the movies, man. Is most things, you know, we watched the Chris Pratt movie, The Tomorrow War, which I thought was a lot of fun. A lot of people thought was shit. I had a lot of fun with it. And I was more than happy to watch that at home versus going out to the theater. But of course I'm going to go out to the theater to see the new Spider-Man. Of course I'm going to go see Doctor Strange in the Mouth of Madness. But all it's going to do is, make that divide more clear, which I think is a good thing. I think game developers should be forced to work not harder, because God knows they work harder than they should, but they should be forced to work at the design and the conceptual level smarter. right? They should be, this is going to get these game developers, at least the AAA game developers, off the crutches of leaning on production value and leaning on special effects and leaning on animation and leaning on budget and saying, we have to dig deeper. We have to find concepts that are sweeter and stronger, that are appealing out the gate, and we have to find mechanics that are fresh and interesting and unique, because otherwise, good enough is good enough. And I think it's going to be great for games, but, you know. Let me read, where did this thing go? Brian E. says, this leads to another question. For an indie AAA developer, which is worth more, a fan purchase or Microsoft's check? Are you talking about financially, or are you talking, I'm not sure what you mean. I think ultimately what's worth more is what lets them stay in business to keep creating games. But usually what lets them stay in business is the very thing that gets them Microsoft's check, which is the ability to bring in gamers that make money for them. So they're kind of tied. Exabot says, thank you for the super chat, buddy. He says, these forums try to extrapolate too much from the boxed UK sales. I know, but that's all they got, man. They also ignore the massive market share difference there. I agree. But really, to be fair to them, and you're not wrong, I get your point, but it's the only weekly sort of scoreboard that game fans have. We don't get this in America for some stupid fucking reason. You would think, I mean, you know, even the monthly NPDs aren't really shared at the level that a lot of people would expect them to be. I don't understand. I have to assume NeoGAF has the money to buy a subscription to NPD. You would think every month they could just publish the data, but maybe there's some kind of agreement you enter into with the NPD report that says, nope, you can only publish the top 10. You can't get into nuance. I have no idea, but I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. These mid-tier games being available day one on Gamepass while being sold at full price on PlayStation really makes Sony look bad, says Saad. Yeah, I know. This is what I've been saying. They absolutely make Sony look terrible. Why would I do that as a consumer? It makes no fucking sense. So, but anyway, there you go. I want to show you guys in just a second. I want to move on. I want to show you guys a game that is it's not causing controversy, but a journalist talked about it today, and I want to show you the trailer, and I want to get your feedback on this because I'm torn. I'm ambivalent, as the kids say. Before I do that, though, I want to very briefly talk about one of our fantastic sponsors. This is Day One Patch Kids. Now, I've been waiting. I got to call them tomorrow. I'm supposed to be getting a mug that has the Joel in one and the toothache so I can drink it here on the stream. This is a fella named Rotten Tanuki. God damn it, Rotten Tanuki. I always get his name wrong. Who takes the Cabbage Patch Kids and he does video game characters like by way of Cabbage Patch Kids. They're really fucking funny. They're really good. Bacon Magma, I don't know if you've gotten your sticker collection yet, but that went out a couple of days ago. But this guy sells mugs and t-shirts and posters and all kinds of cool prints of his stuff. And by the way, it's not just Day One Patch Kids. He's a great pop culture artist. I highly recommend it. You'll be seeing his stream, his link going in the stream as we go. I'll put it in there right now, though, if you're curious. Pop on over there and give this guy some of your attention, and it may be something that you want to acquire for your own personal stuffs. Okay, there we go. But it's good stuff. I very much enjoy the work. There's one behind me. If it wasn't so dark, maybe you can kind of see it. I want to talk about this trailer. So this trailer is called Detained, Too Good for School. It's only 51 seconds. I don't know if I'm going to get a copyright strike. I don't much care because I am here for you. I'm here to give you all the news that's fit to talk about. And I want to show you this. It's 51 seconds. Then I want to talk to you about Destructoid that talked about it today. And I want to tell you something they said. And I want to get your thoughts on it. So I'm going to make it big. Here we go. I'm going to mute my mic and I'm going to play this. Obviously, if you've played River City Girls, which is a phenomenally fun game, I love that game. You will see a lot about that in this, or a lot about this and that. But it's also quite different. We'll talk about it. They're doing their Kickstarter. It's only been out for a day, and they're like $600 for making what they need. Here we go. And there you go. So that is, and that may be coming to Game Pass. Who knows? But what this is if you're not watching, it is a beat 'em up kind of final fight game that is called Detained Too Good for School. What I think is really cool about this game is it's not just the core game loop that is combat, like Final Fight and Streets of Rage and whatnot. There's a much deeper RPG aspect to it in that you can explore the environment, you can level up your character. There are different characters to talk to. You can romance the other classmates in your school. Like there's like a little bit of a dating sim to it. It's a very deep, robust, group of supporting aspects to this title that come together to support that core beat 'em up, which tends to get kind of samey in this genre. So I'm excited for it. And no, somebody asked me, are they paying me? No, I even if I didn't have to, but I think I do, I would always let you know that. That's why I say like Rotten Tanaku and Alixplox. Our newest sponsor is, which just hit, I can't play the music yet. It's a brand new band called Light Among Shadows, and there's a link up there, but I can't play it yet because I got to deal with the copyright stuff. But no. But anyway, though, but this game is interesting to me because it, like I said, it looks deeper and it has a lot more stuff to do. I'm very much looking forward to it. It's coming to Steam right now. They just launched their Kickstarter, and these guys are already, this is not the story, I just want to give you some context. These guys are literally $270 something away. So, and they've only been out for less than a day. They will make this, and they will make a bunch of their stretch goals. I'm very excited about this title. So, but here's why this pinged my brain. Okay. So I learned about this reading Destructoid this morning. And I like Destructoid, good site, fun site, blah, blah, blah. Nothing wrong with it. But then the writer says this, and I'm not saying I agree or disagree. It's just something interesting. He says, this is Chris Mosey. I think that's how you say his name. He says, while comparisons to a certain brawler are inevitable, I guess he's talking about River City, I think Detained is looking pretty rad and right up my alley. I gotta admit, I'm cringing hard at a certain element of the lead character's design. It's embarrassingly, frankly, right? That's the one that popped for me, right? The idea that there is this part of the design of the lead character that is embarrassing, that's cringy, and it is a real problem. So I had to go back and go, what is this guy talking about, right? And I go back to the Kickstarter where I can see the characters more clear. And I think it's clear he's talking about her, this lead character, Rika, I think that's how you say her name. Let me find her. Her ample bosom, as the young kids say. Like it's popping out her blouse right there. Yeah, you can see it. You can see a big shot of it right there. Let me zoom in a little bit if I can. Yeah. Right? You can see her big boobs popping out there. And then somebody in the chat is like, it's weird. These are high school kids, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going, okay, so there's a few things, right? A couple things I want to say about this, right? The first thing is, even though, yes, I still get people to this day commenting on my Aloy video about people fat shaming her, even though I don't think she's fat and all this stuff. And they're like, we deserve pretty people in our games, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, look, what I'll say to that game is what I'll say to this game, which is every game can be different. If the developer has a vision, and this is their vision, or making Aloy more real and grounded visually and not looking like a model is their vision, then I support it. Just like I support the user's right to say, fuck that, that's not for me. I will not pay for that, right? So I have no problem with this. And I think even to go further, if you look at all of the characters, the guys are also, I don't know if they're sexualized, but I'm not into guys, but they look like attractive dudes, right? They're built. This guy's got muscles and shit. If you look at the even the enemies and the people in the town, they're all a little over the top and sort of pushed, right? So I don't think it's just the women, but clearly it's, the art director of this game is like, hey, let's push the boobs, baby, right? I don't fucking know, but I don't have a problem with it if that's the game that it wants to be, okay? The one thing I'm struggling with, though, and I want to bring this up, and I want you to, before I show you this next screen, I want you to really think about what I'm saying, okay? Because I want you to not knee jerk on this, okay? I want you to really give me an honest answer. So the reason it even lands with me and I don't just respond by saying, oh, it's just a game and that's the kind of game it is, and if you don't like it, don't play it. I agree with all of those things. But I also know that there is article after article after article. Sexualization of girls is linked to common mental health issues. Sexualization of girls in the media is harmful. The impact of over-sexualization of our teens. How sexualization of girls creates long-term problems. The sexualization of young girls and mental health problems, right? It's just on and on and on. Is popular culture harming kids, right? So on one hand, it reminds me of when my brother was over once and we were talking about violence in video games. And he said to me, he says, well, if it came out that video games actually did create violent people, and John Romero and I talked about this last week, and I think all the studies have shown it doesn't. But assuming it did, would I stop making video games, right? And I was like, I'd like to think if I really knew we could draw a direct line from violence in video games to a violent society, I would like to think that I would be adult enough to say, yeah, it's been nice to make this money off stuff that's salacious and violent and stuff, but I need to be better than that. I don't want to hurt society, right? Well, in this case, unless you just think it's not true, and that's a great question. Chris Coleman says, does sexualization of guys cause the same harm? It kind of does, according to some of these articles. But but I'll get to that in a second. But if you think that this is not true, then that's one thing. But if you think these, and this is not one site, this is not MSNBC, this is ad nauseum, that says this is a problem. One of the few women who watches our stream, literally, Retro Queen Gamer, literally says, I agree with what you're saying, or I think that's what you're saying, Retro, that you're agreeing with these comments here. But yes, there is something that says, when you're asking about men, it says it's actually starting to affect men as well. I think I'm not going to read. I don't want to dive deep into this. I don't have a lot to say other than it's interesting to me that, you know, this is something that is now, if these studies can show that this kind of sexualization of these characters is leading to problems with young people, I don't know. I mean, doesn't it, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Doesn't it behoove us to at least think about making games like this if we want to make them adults only? Hang on. I'm sorry, fellas. It's a busy night here at Casa Yafae. Imagine this mindset of wanting to not want female characters or masculine men. No one is saying we don't want feminine characters. And it's not, oh my God. Everyone is a victim, says God of War. Again, that's why I'm saying, that's why I entered into this saying I need you to have an open mind, right? Let's just accept the fact that there is going to be a knee-jerk response to this where you feel, even Max Blaze says they can make their game however they want. I know, Max. Come on, you guys. No one is disagreeing with that. No one is saying, Dante, you're a troll. I'm not going to answer you anyway. No one is saying that. Okay. What I'm saying is, these articles are saying that this is a real problem in society, the over-sexualization of that younger people are exposed to, potentially creates, not even potentially, they're saying article after article after article, this creates a problem. And all I'm asking you guys is if that's true, not should they not be allowed to make their games? No, of course not. But do you think maybe they would, I don't know, would either make it adults only, or they would think twice about it, or they should think twice about it? I'm not, again, I don't have an opinion on this, because I like that she's got big boobs. And then someone's going to say, but she's in high school. I'm like, you know what? Sorry. She's not real, but she's got big boobs and they're shown off. Of course I'm going to like it. What do you want me to do? I don't care that the fictional character is underage, but you know, there we are. I mean, it's like, sorry, I'm a healthy straight male. I know in my fantasy that the age is she's 17, so nope. But the minute in the fictional world she becomes 18 and nothing else changes, then I can be turned on by her. Come on now. Right, Caveman says it's not about can or can't, it's should they. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, there are 18-year-old girls in high school. That's true. Yeah, clip it all you want. I'm tired of that shit too. I'm tired of people acting like, oh, how dare you? Okay, listen. But the point is, yeah, I don't know what to think about it, because if I am seeing those articles that are suggesting that this is a real problem in society, I don't know. The fact that some of you guys in the chat don't seem to even care, like you act like I don't give a shit, I want my tits in my games. I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to have your tits in your games. I'm just saying that if these studies are to be believed, then why in the world would it not even be a valid discussion? And this is not a Japanese game. I don't believe they're making this in Japan. I think this is a UK game, actually. But it's certainly inspired by. I appreciate good art. I don't dislike this. I'm going to fund this. I like this. I like the game. I like the look. I like the characters. I'm not saying this is bad. Come on, guys. Don't not all of you. Some of you motherfuckers are smart, but there's a point where some of you guys just disappoint me. It's like maybe you're masturbating or playing a game while you're listening to me. Maybe you're just not paying attention. I'm not saying what you think I'm saying, some of you guys. Come on now. I'm just, you know. How do you not? Okay, but Wiki says we don't agree with these studies. Based on what though? What study would you agree with? Anyway, not one study shown. Okay, let me go to one. Fine. Harvard? Let's see. Let me find you a study and you tell me if it's reputable. I don't fucking know. Again. Okay, let's find women. Okay, a 2011 study conducted by the University of Buffalo examined the content in Rolling Stone, a magazine owned and run by males primarily. The study concluded that on the average, 83% of women featured in the magazine were sexualized, in contrast to 17% of men. It was discovered that within those statistics, women were 1,000 times more likely to be featured in hypersexualized images, defined as images objectifying the subjects by portraying them as ready and available for sex rather than sexy. Is that not a good enough article? Is there a problem with University of Buffalo? How about this one? Research published by the American Psychological Association addressed the cognitive and emotional consequences of sexualization in the media, specifically regarding women, but obviously it applies to certain men as well. The study suggested that the repercussions of consistent sexualization of women often include development of mental disorders such as anxiety, depression, and eating disorders. Okay? American Psychological Association and University of Buffalo. I have no problem if you guys have some studies to show that University of Buffalo and American Psychological Association are full of shit. But Claire or Jill? Claire, every goddamn day of the week. Yes, I'm thrilled. Wolfblood, I agree. Some women are beautiful. Absolutely true. Media, not video games, Retro Goldfish. What? Okay. All right. I'm going to move on because I'm not going to debate this. I'm not going to spend all night on this. Let's move on. But my point is not they should or shouldn't make it. They should be able to make whatever the fuck they want to make. My point is maybe we should open our minds a little bit and at least consider that this is maybe something we should take into consideration seriously. All right, I want to move on, though. I got this from Neto Barros over on our Discord. And if you're not part of the Discord, you should join it. It'll let you call in, just like Andy Lee is waiting for us and Cannibal Lecter's waiting for us. I'm going to put him on the show in just a few minutes. But he says, I was talking the other day. He says, where do I find Jaffe talking about being a game developer versus a fan? In the Doom stream, I was playing Doom Eternal. He talked a little about how it's better to be a fan of games and it leaves you free to be impressed by things. Something that doesn't happen when we see games as the way to pay the bills. And he was like, talk a little bit more about that, right? But that said, it ties into this that I've been wanting to talk about for about 4 or 5 days from a developer. I don't know her that well, but she's been in the biz forever, longer than me. Laura Lynn McWilliams. The last I heard, I think she worked on Sorcery. I'm not sure. Let's see where she is right now. She was the design lead on Full Spectrum Warrior. She does a Play Patterns and Practices podcast. Done a lot of things. Maybe I'll see if she wants to come on the show and do an interview with her. But anyway, the point is all of this leads to me ultimately questioning why in the world, anybody, honestly, at this point would want to make AAA video games, right? So because ultimately, yes, back to Neto's question, it absolutely obliterated, at least for me, the joy of playing 90% of video games. Sometimes I could get into something, but you lose perspective, or at least I did. And I don't know if other game developers do or not, but when you are making them and you are competing and you are studying the market, you find yourself less able to just get lost in the joy. And I think, honestly, when I was a developer on the tail end of developing games, that really hurt me as a creator because I lost perspective of what the gamers wanted, because I don't think I was a gamer anymore the last 4 or 5 years of my career, because how could I be? I was always competing and learning and wondering, how to get the next deal and how to set up the next company or whatever. So what's interesting about this is, I've been playing, though, since I started this stream and before, so many games, and I have fallen back in love with games of all different sizes and types. I am obsessed right now. I'm playing Desperados 3. It is the first game in probably 4 years that I've been I was up till 4:30 in the morning the other night playing Desperados 3. I love it. I love the characters. I love the world. I love the game. It's phenomenal, right? So part of it is, why would you want to ruin that for yourself? But let's assume that you think you do. Okay, then let's go to this article or this thread by Laurelyn, where she says one of the unspoken taxes of being a game developer or being in game dev is having to move physically, like your body, especially in AAA. Since I started in pro game development, I've lived in Raleigh, North Carolina, Ann Arbor, Seattle, Chicago, LA, Austin, San Diego, San Francisco, LA again, and Seattle again. That's 10 moves in 27 years. It almost certainly destroys your spouse partner's career, she goes on to say, because they have no consistency, they have no long track record, less opportunity in their career for advancement, and it becomes harder and harder to make friends in new cities as you age, especially if you're an introvert like Laurelyn is. She had a Skype with somebody on her team last week where she told the person she was talking to about their career advancement. She said, this is Laurelyn talking. She says, I burned my entire life and my husband's life on the altar of game development. I have no regrets because game development and design is at my core, but it is a hard road for sure. Right? And so when you think about not game development, okay, but when you think about, I want to put something up on the screen. I'll get to that super chat in just a second. I appreciate it, buddy. When you think about game development, at a AAA level, at this point, I don't even understand why you would be interested in creating it unless you can be the director or the lead programmer or anything like that. And in order to be that, it's not like when I started where I was that almost immediately out of test because nobody else knew what the fuck I was talking about, right? These days, you got to get in line and you got to pay your dues and you got to, unless you're coming from an indie space and you're a rock star in the indie space, right? So if you look at this is brilliant. This is one of my favorite games of the year. One of the probably the prettiest game I've ever seen in my goddamn life. This is Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. I'm just going to show you like 20 seconds of gameplay. One of the coolest sequences in the game. Watch this and then I'll tell you why it's relevant. Come on now, there he goes. This sequence was amazing. Did it pause? Why did it pause? What the fuck? Come on now. Okay, so that's the gist. It's a phenomenal game. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It is a blast. But if you are going, I love those games, I want to make that. My real question to you would be, why? Right? Because if you're on this team, what do you're going to, if you're an artist, you're going to do all these you're going to be doing the textures. You know, you're going to be modeling the screws. It's not like, unless you kind of get in there or you happen to be a genius, you are going to be, you are going to be designing the characters, right? You're not going to be at the level that would excite you, right? And, well, okay, so Robert Robinson says that's like any high-end art career, right? Sort of. But it's not a bunch of QuickTime events, Retro. I'm just showing that because that's one of the highest production elements of the game. There's tons of that it's not that. Well, Brian King says because of the joy it brings people. I guess possibly, but I don't really know if when you look at what it takes away. I'm going to give you an option. I'm not saying you shouldn't make video games. I'm saying that at this level, if you look at, what I was talking to Neto about, where it takes away your ability to perceive games, what Laurelyn is talking about, which is especially at AAA, you are going to move all over. It'll fuck with your health. And then she even talks about where does she say a note based on some of the replies she's gotten. How often you move greatly depends on how many openings in your specific discipline at your level. For many years, there might only be 5 to 6 game creative design jobs in the entire world that are open. So you would have no choice but to move, right? So it totally fucks up your personal life. It totally fucks up your relationship with games. And I agree. I don't disagree with you about, Brian, that it brings joy to people. That's wonderful, okay? But how much of that joy do you feel responsible for when you're the guy or the girl texturing the rocks? And that's what you did for most of the 2 years you were on the project crunching, or not just the rocks, but you know what I'm saying. Versus, and I'm not trying to sell you on indie games, fellas. I'm not. Do with it what you will. But versus working in smaller game spaces where you have more creative freedom, you have smaller teams, you can work remote, which means you can work anywhere in the world for the most part. I mean, you can't do that more and more with bigger games, but for the most part, you on a smaller team are going to have a lot more of your vision and a lot more of your voice reflected in the game and in the pleasure that you bring people. And again, I'm not suggesting they all have to be these arty-farty games that you see here. I love these games. But look at New Blood. These are some of my favorite games of the last 5 years. Dusk, Ultra Kill, and a Medieval. These are hardcore, violent as fuck, fun as fuck shooters. Dusk was made by one guy, Severed Steel, who is going to be on the show. I forget his name. I apologize about that. He is going to be on the show Thursday at 11:30. Was made by mostly one guy. It's one of the most fun games I've played in a very long time. I assume Ultra Kill is similar. So I'm just kind of seeing, Rob the mod. I even got you. Here's Rob's game. Rob, one of our great mods, our first mod, our master mod, is literally, this is a game he's working on. It's a one-man band. I've played Iron Fury. I liked it a lot, Snake. This is him just kind of kicking around working on weapons, right? It's getting so easy. Not easy, that's the wrong word, but it's getting so easy to improve your quality of life if you work at a different scale, that the question becomes, why would you work at a big scale? unless you can work at the big scale and you can be a Corey or a Jaffe back in the day or a Neil Druckmann today. Why, so what's a YouTube says they're gambling to become a lead designer, just like you gamble and grind as a PA to become a film director. But it's not that way, YouTube. That is a misconception. If you go, my dad used to say that too, and I was like, my dad was a real smart guy in some ways, but he did not, he was wrong about this part, which was, he would say, oh, you can work your way up, start as a PA. It's like, no, you can work your way up to a producer that way. But if you want to make a movie, then go make movies and make indie movies and make shorts and then get yourself hired as a director somewhere. So I would agree, if you want to direct the next Spider-Man game, then you should go out and think about this. If you're the guy if you were the one-man band who made Dusk or Ultra Kill, I don't know how many people made a Medieval, but if you made Dusk or Ultra Kill or Severed Steel, and you walk into Insomniac and they say, hey, we're looking at making a new Resistance and we're looking for a lead designer or a lead combat designer. Well, you're going to jump probably 50 spaces in the goddamn line because you're like, shit, you made this? That's how it works in the movie industry. That's exactly how it works in the movie industry. That's why you see a lot of new directors working for Marvel. Marvel's like, oh, we saw your small little movie that no one saw, but we think you would be great. To come in and direct, whatever, the new Blade movie or whatever. So I'm just saying, I don't really understand, the older I get, the appeal, especially when you hear about the crunch that everybody except me, for the most part, complains about. That's not true. A lot of people complain about, you know what I'm saying. All right, there we go. I'm going to get to some calls. I want to just tell you one thing. That as I've gotten older, and I've talked to more, Bacon Magma, you're a moron. That's not what I'm saying. Bacon Magma says, hey, don't do big projects because they're hard to do. Do small projects instead. They're easier. It's not about easy or hard, man. It's about, if anything, it's about making sure that if your goal is to express your creativity and your vision, there are better opportunities to do that than getting in line at the sausage factory known as AAA development, where you can work with a team of anywhere from like 1 to 20, and you can actually make a mark in the industry and in that game. That's what it's about. I didn't say you wouldn't work hard, but you probably wouldn't have to move as much because you could work remote on games like that often, not always, but more often than AAA. And you'd have more of an opportunity to make a mark. Solid Snake, thank you, buddy. He dropped a super chat. Thanks. He says, sorry, Jaffe, kind of just came in. Can you bring me up to speed on the discussion? Well, sir, I think at the time we were talking about what I was just talking about, which was AAA and indie, and why in the world you would work for a AAA publisher when you could get a lot more satisfaction working for a smaller developer. Here's what I'll tell you, because you dropped that ducat. If you're on our Discord, if you want to DM me, I will find where that discussion started, and I will send you a link to this very stream where it is time coded, and all you have to do is click it, and you will start right at the absolute beginning of that discussion that you came in on, Solid Snake. But thank you so much for the generosity and being part of our community, and for that super chat. Hit me up on Discord, and I will take care of you in that way. A thought here, says Brian, but do you have a recommendation for a tool set to use in indie game development? I will have a recommendation, but you have to give me a little bit more information while I'm talking about this next news story in regards to what kind of game you want to make. Solid says, I asked this in a previous stream. Oh, you know what? I got to get... Hey, Cal, let me go get the door. I'll be right back in 2 seconds. Chair, but I need to get a different chair. Okay, so Solid says, I've asked this in a previous stream, but didn't stay to get your answer. What budget would be reasonable to create a compelling AAA game? I mean, okay, I mean, on average, you're looking these days at 75 million to 250 million. Obviously, if you're talking about Red Dead, the rumor is Red Dead was over half a billion, meaning $500 million. But yeah, I mean, that's roughly. Larry says David Jaffe isn't the same person. He went straight Atari shill. I don't know if you saw this, Leonard. That Atari today said that they're going to try to get back into premium video game development. Okay. You got to be my age or older, a little bit younger, to give a fuck about Atari getting back into development. Why are they even a company? I don't know. Okay, so what tools do you want to use is what you're asking, right? Well, it depends on the game. There are some phenomenal tools that you can use. Where was that question? Who asked me that question? Brian East. Brian East, did you respond? Did you tell me what you want to make? I don't know. But here's what I'll tell you. Unity and Unreal are great if you're willing. You don't have to code to do those, but you know, if you're willing to kind of get down into the weeds a little bit and learn those, they're not hard by any means, but they are, especially Unity, you know, it's very involved, right? But it's great. You can do a lot of things. If you want to do like multiplayer shooters, go to Core. Go to Core right now, or go to Roblox if you want to make kind of more fun, casual games, right? You can go to Game Maker, which is not, they do 3D, but you can go to more, you can get more 2D games on those. And there have been hit games made with Game Maker and obviously Unity and obviously Unreal. And so it really is, games are never going to be as easy to make as, you know, YouTube is to aim the camera and make a video. But at this point, you can make games if you want to, even if you don't really code. Like I was on that show on IGN, The Next Game Boss. The guy made his game, who won the competition. He made his game in Unity, didn't know a lick of code. He was an artist, and he just kind of got the basics from off-the-shelf Unity assets, and he made his game. So it depends what you want to make, man, is really the question. Where did that thing go? Okay, this guy says, Stillrin says, if we say games are art, then making decisions about game design is the cornerstone being an artist. But just being an employee making the rock textures, then you are a cog. Right. That's exactly right. I mean, that's the thing is if you're really driven by passion, I would much, and again, you don't have to agree with me, but if it's me and you're driven by passion, I would much rather somebody comes to me and says, you have $3 million or $1 million to do whatever the fuck you want, that's your vision, then you have $250 million. And even if you're the director, you've got to please marketing, you've got to please your boss, you've got to please the executives, you've got to pitch the stockholders and make sure, you know, I mean, ultimately, which is going to let you express yourself and the team better was really the question. Jarvie says, I've been using Click Team Fusion 2.5 to make platformers. It's pretty good for me. I don't know code, and that's why it's perfect. I haven't made anything big yet, but I'm trying. Great. And the good news there is you'll know sooner than later if you even like it. If you like the process, that's the most important thing. A lot of people want to get into games, like, go make some games first. Making a game is nothing like playing a game. It's its own game, but it's a very different experience. All right, the last story I got before I bring in phone calls, this isn't so much a story. What I was going on earlier was the older I get, and I had that conversation with John Romero last week where he was talking about how he interacted with fans, that the games he worked on meant a lot. And I've told you guys before, I struggle with when people come up to me and they say things like, you know, oh, you know, you worked on games that made my childhood, and I have these memories of working or playing your games with my dad and the team's games with my dad and my brother, and they bonded us and all this shit. And I've always had a hard time knowing how to respond to that. Because it's just like it's such a big statement to make to someone that you didn't really do it intentionally. It's just a byproduct of you doing your own thing with the team, right? So But it's interesting that Richard Donner, I grew up obsessed with wanting to be a movie maker. I wasn't good at it at all. And it's kind of like video games when I'm telling you that I should have made more movies to realize this is not for me. But I love the idea of being a movie maker. And Richard Donner was right, below Spielberg and Lucas and Zemeckis. He did The Goonies, he did Superman 1 and 2, he did Lethal Weapon, he did The Omen, he did Scrooged, he did The Toy. The guy was just a fucking powerhouse director and producer of hit commercial movies that could read the market. And he died yesterday at 91. Cause of death being 91 is what I would assume. But this one kind of hit me hard. He did Lady Hawk, for God's sakes. It only hit me hard just because it was like, yeah, this is a guy whose work really affected my growth and my childhood. And to know that he is gone now, it's not like I gave him a thought most days. But to know that he is no longer here, I don't know, man. It's just, I kind of, between that and the conversation with John Romero, it absolutely makes me understand, even though there's no ego about it, but the work that I did with the Santa Monica team and the work that I did with the guys in Utah, and he did Maverick, that's right. It makes me realize that I have gotten to work with these guys and even though intellectually I've understood that I've been able to kind of lay a brick in pop culture, until I really have started seeing my own people who really made my childhood, as they start to die, I start to realize, I think I get it now when people come up to me and they say those really nice things. Sir Dan says he hasn't directed anything in a while. No, his last movie was a Bruce Willis flop made in 2006. Him and his wife were still prolific producers. They produced the X-Men movies and a bunch of other things. But directors, 91, his last movie was in his late 70s, so he's doing pretty good. Where did that go? There was a super chat. Let me get 2 super chats in real quick. We got a super chat. I hope I didn't miss anybody's. If I did, I'm sorry. I think one was but it was a sticker, so there's nothing to respond to. But I appreciate that. Thank you for that. Let me check it real quick right here. Okay. Jonathan Martinez says, thank you, buddy. He says, do you think there's more talent now in video making? You mean video game making? I think at this point in games, yes. But I think it's because we have gotten it down and it's continuing to be easier to make the process easier to make games. And in that, what used to be more craftspeople or super technical people ruling the roost, now you're able to have people who are just like the guy who won that contest, the guy who won the Game Boss contest. He was like making a story about a drunk who I could be wrong, but I think was inspired by his dad, right? He was able to take something more personal and just use some off-the-shelf tools to express himself through interactivity. So yeah, I think there's more talent in the game business now, simply because the tools have evolved enough that you're able to not have to be so technically abled or have so much money to express yourself through the medium. The Antonio Banderas movie was Assassins. You guys are familiar with the meme with Antonio Banderas, sitting back, and I think Naughty Dog has riffed on it a couple of times. That was from a movie, Chongo, from Richard Donner called Assassins. It was Banderas and I think Stallone was in that. Okay, where did that thing go? Brian King, Brian King was saying something I wanted to get to. Brian King, goddammit, I lost it. If it was important and you wanted my feedback, let me know. Maybe you were talking to somebody else. All right, I'm going to bring in these calls real quick. Cannibal Lecter's been waiting since the very beginning. I appreciate you waiting, sir. What's going on, Cannibal Lecter? How are you? He might have passed away. He's been waiting so long. Otherwise, I'm going to bring in Andy Lee, and then I'll bring Cannibal back. I'll give you 5 seconds, Cannibal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, I'll bring you back on. This is Andy Lee. Andy Lee, it's Jaffe. How you doing, man?
Jeffy. Two questions.
Yep.
Earlier, you were talking about how you increasingly stop enjoying games when you're working in AAA.
Yes.
I've heard from some game developers that during a given project, they were so busy that there's like years where they miss seeing the popular movies and games of that period. So my question is, during God of War and running your own studio for Drawn to Death, how was it for you? Did you feel like it was difficult to keep up with gaming trends?
Well, okay, movie trends, no, because movies are quick, right? Movies are 2 hours, and movies were always an escape. So on a Sunday, I used to take myself to the movies. I used to love to go to the movies by myself on a Sunday afternoon. I never went to the movies by myself at night. It felt too weird. But I would always, other than like weekends where we were crunching, I would absolutely go see movies. So I was able to keep abreast of that. But with games, unless it was something I was specifically researching, it wasn't that I didn't have the time. That was part of it, but it was more that I was so aware of how the sausage was made, and I was working with a team to make the sausage every goddamn day, that the idea of going home and just being reminded of like, now it's time to eat the sausage, even though it wasn't the brand I was making. I just didn't have that motivation. I didn't care. Like, people were raving about Red Dead Redemption, not the 2, but the one that came out a while ago, and not Revolver. And I played it for about, like, I played everything, but I only played things for a very short time, except things that really, really, really hooked me. So, like, Red Dead, I was like, now I could go back and play Red Dead like I'm playing Desperados and probably get really immersed in the world and the story and not see where the cracks are in the facade, or not see where the wires are. But at the time, though, no, I couldn't do that. Not because I didn't have the time, but because I didn't have the mindset.
Understood. I appreciate that. Second question, I really enjoyed the video that you had made where I think it was like a Nintendo Switch Mario Kart box that they had come out with, and you were expressing your appreciation of how amazing they made this box, how captivating it makes it look, how to bring all these great memories, but at the same time, like, it's this dichotomy of you feeling this conflict of knowing how much work is involved in making something like that. So you have a lot of relief that you're like, oh, I'm glad I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah, that's right. It was it actually was the Switch box Mario Kart bundle.
Mario Tennis, maybe? Yeah, something like that.
And I looked at it, and it looked so delightful, and it looked so fun. It looked like a piece of fucking candy. And yeah, it was tennis. You're right. It was Mario Tennis. And I remember looking at it, and I was absolutely conflicted. I looked at this box and I said, it's on the screen right now, and I was just like, that looks so charming and fun, and I can imagine being a kid and getting that for Christmas and just, obsessing over the colors and stuff. But then you're like, oh my God, man, everything in here is fought, their battles, their wars. It's like, I don't want Mario wearing those kind of shoes. Legal says they look too much like New Balance. And Princess Daisy's expressions too sexual. Can you make it less sexual? And the 1-2 Switch full game download, is that going to be a cart or is that going to be a download? If it's going to be a download, who are we going to get to print the actual card? Because the people we usually have are busy doing something else this time of year. It's just everything you look at reflects a decision that you have familiarity with, and it's very hard to just be a fan. And I have missed that, and I am so glad that I was able to rediscover that through not making games anymore.
Right. So here's my question. Famously, movie production. I think it can be an easy statement to say that movie production, if nothing else, is a hell of a lot more physical and has an insane amount of logistics to track, right? You got to deal with the weather and blocking off traffic, getting permits, all the stuff, right? You're driving your trucks of equipment through traffic and things like that.
Yeah.
So I know you didn't, have a movie career, but since that was a dream of yours when you were younger, I was wondering, do you have a similar kind of confliction when you look at like a movie poster and you think about, I would have loved to make something like this that affected people in the way that it did, but then you also know just how much work goes into something like that. I was hoping you could talk a little bit about your feelings with confliction with the Mario box with movie production. And that's it for me. Thank you.
All right, thanks, man. I appreciate it, Andy. Not really, and I think it's because I didn't do it as a career, but I also think it's because on a game, like, movies are so much more predictable, right? So on a movie, you can write your screenplay, and if you're the writer director, that's your North Star always. And yes, there are logistics. This actor dropped out, or oh shit, it's raining and the scene can't work in the rain. Do I rewrite it with the writer unless you're the writer on the fly, or do we choose? Yeah, there is that. But those problems are finite, and it's all finite. But those problems are limited to a 6-week, 12-week period of shooting. And yeah, you've got pre-production and all that stuff, but you're always headed towards that screenplay being turned into the product, and you know how to make a movie, and the team knows how to make the movie. It's just dealing with, the logistics and just if it's good or not, right? With a game, though, the technology is always advancing. The design, unless you're making like a game you've made over and over and over, and you're just plussing it up for the sequel or a reskin, the design, you don't know if it's good or not until you start making it. So this concept of a design document is like, yeah, it's nice to get you started, but no one reads it. No, it's not like the team gets it and goes, okay, this is what level 8's going to consist of. And, it doesn't work that way. And so much of your day making games is, it's more complicated than making a movie, honestly, because you're having to reinvent the technology often and do the creative at the same time with the team. But sure, though, I would imagine if you're in marketing, looking at this box or looking at a movie poster probably creates a different feeling. But for me, no, not with movies. All right, Cannibal Lecter, it's Jaffe. Are you there this time? Cannibal Lecter, I'm trying to bring you in. Where are you, buddy? Come on now. Cannibal Lecter. Are you there? All right, I don't see you, buddy. I see you, but I don't hear you. So, that said. That's it. That's all we got, folks. I want to tell you what's going on in the world. Wednesday, we are going to be doing... Thursday, sorry. We are going to be doing... Thursday at 11:30, I will be bringing on the one-man band, for the most part, of one of the best games I've played in a very long time. It is called Severed Steel. If you want to take a look at it, you can. Here's the PS4 announcement trailer. I'll put that up while we're talking and wrapping up. Here it is. This thing is just delightful. It is so good. It is so fun. The director, developer, main creator of this will be coming on, talking to us about this game. Hopefully I can convince him to give away some codes. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's a blast of a fucking game. It's delightful. And so he's coming on. Brenda Romero's coming on soon. I think Alana Pierce is coming on soon. There's a couple other people who have really interesting backstories that are going to be here soon talking too. But in the meantime, I'll be gaming tomorrow on the stream, and then I'll be back Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. But in the meantime, there you go. That's Gabbin' and Games for whatever today is. Let me get this last super chat encryption. Thank you, buddy. He says, Jaffe, hey bud, do you think new Nintendo Switch was a way for Nintendo seeing where the leaks are? A lot of people reported it was going to be 4K. No, I don't. I mean, I guess anything's possible. Anything's possible, but I certainly do not think that they're going to make an entire system and spend the massive gobs of money they need to build a whole system simply to figure out where some leaks are. I think if you're going to do that, there's other ways that you could pull that off without spending those kind of ducats. The game looks different, Jarvie. Well, maybe it's played better than I'm playing it. But I loved it. I fucking love it. Am I covering State of Play? Yeah, probably, Guy. I'll probably stream it. It depends when it is. That's a good point. I may need to move my interview because I know a lot of people are going to be watching State of Play. So we'll have to see. But I think so. Yeah. I mean, I'm not really looking forward to it. Hopefully there's some really interesting indie game drops. But other than that, I'm just kind of like, Oh, Rotten, you want to know about the mug? Tell me real quick. So I saw that, but I was going to get to it and I forgot. Bacon says, Jaffe, but thank you for the super chat, man. I appreciate it. Who is that? Here, let me go back up. Encryption, thanks, bud. How has your new gaming job been? Good. I had a consultation meeting today with the lead developer, lead designer of a new game. He sent me his design document, and they're working on this game. I can't tell you what it is. It's really cool. It's really creative, and I really enjoyed kind of being back in the business at that level where I could kind of talk and share my views, and we could debate and discuss video games. And then after that, I kind of went on with my day and went back to streaming, which is really what I love. But it's been good. I appreciate you asking, sir. It was censored. Are you talking to me about this game? In the West, it was M-rated. Maybe it was a PlayStation censorship. Maybe you're talking to somebody else, because I'm not sure what game you are talking about, sir. I want to just hang on the line for Rotten to come back. But Rotten, I think what it was that you said is that the mug that I ordered from Day One Patch Kids, maybe it didn't go through. Maybe I need to reorder it, if what it is. Sony's definitely censoring sexual content. Well, yeah. It's not really censoring, though. It's kind of a bad word. Sony's making decisions. Let's put it this way. One of the games, you guys know that the company that I'm working with, Movie Games, is Lust from Beyond, which is a total AO rated game. And Sony's agreed to put it out. We talked about it on E3 with it sort of a console rated version. Well, you goddamn right. There's stuff that Sony has said, look, if you want to put it out on our systems, you need to make some changes. And a lot of the changes make sense, and some of the changes I think are stupid. Now, is that censorship? No, because no one's it's saying if you want to be on our system, you have to do these things. And it's business. So, pure art wise, I would love to say, fuck that, we're not doing it. But A, it's not my call. And B, it's given up a lot of money. And you can make enough concessions, it'll be fine. But you're right, though. They have that demand, but they can make that demand. And if you don't want to play their game, you don't have to. But I don't know if that's censorship is such a weird verb because it implies something evil. But to me, it's just kind of decisions. It's not real. It's not censorship, though, because name a company that allows anyone to come into their place of business and do whatever the fuck they want. Can I come into McDonald's and shit on the floor? No. Well, that's censorship. I mean, what other company do you... Yes, I understand the definition of censorship doesn't have to include government agencies. I understand. But ultimately, when people use that term, it usually is implying more government-based control, right? But yes, it does fit the term censorship. But again, I mean, that's any company in the world is going to have rules and regulations that they require you to meet in order to partake in their business, right? And so, yeah, shitting on the floor would be an epic stream. That's right. So, you'd get kicked out, Bukaki says. That's right. You can't go into Disneyland and yell racial slurs or religious slurs. You can do it, but they'll kick you out. Is that censorship? I guess. But, what company doesn't do that? I'm sure, Scott McClellan, all you're doing is defining censorship. I understand. Right? I understand it doesn't have to come from the government. But ultimately, it's any business does that. So, yeah, okay, Sony censors their games. Sure. Everybody censors their games. Everybody censors their products. Every creative decision that they think will be better for you as a customer or their customers in general is censorship then. I don't have a problem with it. Just don't be on Sony. If you want to be on Sony, you got to play by their rules. Why is this a problem? Yes, Jarvie, the console version of Lust from Beyond will be streamable on Twitch since adults-only rated games cannot be streamed. Yes, it will be streamable because it'll be an M-rated title. All right, fellas, I'm out. I'm out. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Rob the Mod. Thank you, Bukaki. I want to say we had one more mod in here today. If I missed you, I apologize. Yes, some sad news, Rob says. We lost a member of our Discord family in a car crash recently. Bruno was his name. Bruno, I raise a Diet Soda Soldier Cup to you, buddy. Thank you so much for being part of our community. I hope you're out there going on some next great adventure. I tell you what, man. I hope your family that you left behind is doing the best they can. I'm sorry you had to leave so early, man. I'm sorry you had to leave the party so early. I didn't get to know you that well, but you always seemed like a good, nice fella. And I'm sorry you had to go, bud. I'll see you on the other side, hopefully a long time from now. But we'll see you down the road. Rest in peace, Bruno. Like I said, don't fucking say rest in peace when I go. I don't want to be in peace. Go rest in like badass adventures. That's what I want. Peace. Fuck that. I want to have some adventures, goddammit, on the other side. Okay, I'm out though, fellas. Thank you guys. Thanks, Rob, for letting us know that. Rotten, I will comment on your DM right now. And